not only would his money do more good for the poor outside of his pockets than in them, but Mrs. Little seemed to believe that her getting a donation from Mr. Lowe would prove whether or not Lydia was worthy of marrying her son. "I'm sure this year's project will meet your approval, if you'd let me share." He shrugged. "I was trying to save you breath." "I haven't a shortage of breath." His lips twitched as he leaned back in his chair. He pulled the pencil from behind his ear and rolled it between his fingers. "Then do share, Miss King." "We ladies quilt at our weekly meetings, but cutting out the blocks by hand takes a lot of time. With machines, we could do more. We'd like to—" "I'm sorry to interrupt, sir." Mr. Lowe's secretary poked his head through the door, his bulbous nose out of place on his rail-thin body. "There's been an accident. Nothing terrible, but it needs your immediate attention." Mr. Lowe crossed the room and glanced out the window. "I should have noticed it had gone quiet." He pulled a frock coat off a hook and shrugged into it. Lydia folded her hands demurely. She'd wait for him to return. She wasn't about to tell Sebastian's mother she'd left without a dime. What was simply pocket change to Mr. Lowe could decide her future. She needed to marry Sebastian Little before her father put them into so much debt that Sebastian changed his mind about her suitability. If she didn't marry before long, she'd soon be poor enough to need one of the Moral Society quilts. However, a warm blanket would do little to ease Mama's suffering. Mr. Lowe stopped in front of her as he made quick work of his buttons. "I'm afraid my answer is still no." He flashed a smile and bobbed his head. "Good day, Miss King." Lydia turned the page and hooked her foot around the leg of Mr. Lowe's big green chair. "Goodness, Miss King!" She jumped at Mr. Lowe's secretary's surprised voice and fumbled the book. The cloth-bound volume slid down her white-ruffled skirt and landed pages down on the floor. "You startled me, miss." The secretary's large Adam's apple descended with his noisy swallow. "I didn't expect you in here." "I apologize." Lydia leaned over, grabbed the book, and winced. The center pages had folded back upon themselves. Considering its tight binding, Mr. Lowe hadn't yet read his brand-new copy of Mark Twain's Roughing It. She brushed the clingy sawdust off the page edges. "I was waiting for Mr. Lowe, and I couldn't resist." She held out the book limply and then shook her head. "I shouldn't have taken it off his desk, but it looked neglected." Sitting under a thin covering of sawdust, the title she'd been eyeing in Harper's Bazaar for several weeks had called to her. "Anyway, I thought I'd bide my time until he returned." "Mr. Lowe isn't returning." "The accident?" She bit her lip. Before she'd started reading, she'd fumed over Mr. Lowe's rude departure, but if someone had been hurt, she'd need to repent every bit of that anger. "A stack of lumber fell and knocked out a fence. Mr. Borer received a nasty bump to the head, so Mr. Lowe sent him home 2 hours ago." 2 hours? Lydia turned to the clock at the back of the office, and her heart sank. 2 hours and 15 minutes, to be exact. She rubbed her hand down her face. "You say he isn't coming back?" If only he'd returned and donated a few dollars toward the quilting project, the Moral Society might excuse her for missing half their meeting. She didn't relish telling Sebastian's mother that not only had she failed, but she'd also lost herself in a book she wasn't supposed to be reading. "Yes, ma'am. On Monday afternoons, he goes to his office at the Mining and Gas Company." All the way down Maple Street, in the opposite direction of the church. "I'm afraid we didn't realize you had other business, or he'd have returned." Her shoulders slumped. "No other business. I hadn't finished my proposal." "I thought I heard him decline."